back to Yerushalmi Shekalim with the fifth parak. We are holding on Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, yeah? In the old style pages, it was Kaf Beis. In the old Vilna pages, in the Daf Yomi pages, it used to be Yud Daled. I remember when I did it in Daf Yomi times, this was Daf Yud Daled. But anyway, so the Mishnah carried on. They were in charge of making the loaves. They were experts in making the loaves of Ridiyasa and getting it out of the oven. But they didn't want to teach others. So they brought experts from Egypt. And now they knew how to make it. But Ridiyasa, they weren't expert in taking the bread out of the oven. They'd be complete, they shouldn't break. Now Beis Gama would make the ovens, the fuel in the ovens from the inside and bake the loaves in special forms. We rode in and moved the loaves out from the forms after they were completely baked and after they were taken out of the oven, and therefore the loaves wouldn't break. And since they didn't take the bread from the forms until it was completely baked, it wouldn't go moldy. But the Alexandrines, they would make the fire hot from the inside, but rode in and take the loaves out from the forms from the inside before their baking was complete, and therefore it also went moldy. They weren't baked equally, it seems. The Bavli says there was a big miracle that they stayed fresh the whole week. Before that, they needed to do what they could do for the sake of whatever they could do. Okay. Maybe the time of the first Beis Mikdash, this miracle happened because the Cohen were important. Towards the end of the second temple, where many times they would sell the Cohen for a price, maybe that miracle stopped. Chachamim found out Hashem created things for his honor. So they sent after the craftsmen of Beis Gama. They didn't want to come back until their wage was doubled.
Who's this that didn't want to come back?
What?
Who didn't want to come back?
Beis Gama, they didn't want to come back and make the bread until their wage was doubled. Now in the beginning, they used to take 12 money for their wage. But they now made it 24. He said, they took 24 originally, even made it 48. The Chacham said to Beis Gama, why are you not teaching others? They said back to them, but we have a tradition of the temple is going to be destroyed. We don't want to give the secret to others. They'll do it to their idol. Now, although the Chacham didn't praise them on keeping the secret, these things we do remember them for good. None of their children ever baked at home like this very clean bread. Now they're eating from the Masechet Shekalim. Now it says here, so here we find that they wanted more money and they got it. They did like a strike and they wanted more money and they got it. Nevertheless, the Tosefta says someone who, let's say, is a scribe for the masses or a baker for the masses, and there's no one else except him, and he's a regal, he wants to go home, we can stop him and we say, no, you find a replacement, otherwise you can't go. Now that's a similar idea, but there we're sort of holding him back. We're stopping the guy striking, and yet here they let Beis Gama strike. So what's the difference? So Rav Bakshi Daron in his Truvas, he says maybe there's a contradiction. So he answers like this: there's no contradiction. He says even without a strike, to do work properly, Beis Gama, right? They had a special task. Unless their heart is in it, they can't do the work properly. You understand? So the guy in the Tosefta is talking about the man who is a washerman or whatever. He runs the laundry or something like that. So okay, big deal. He's running the laundry. We want to hold him back. But here, he said, Beis Gama were doing very specialist work, and unless their heart was in it, they wouldn't do their specialist work. Yeah? They wouldn't do it to the same standard. Even if we force them, they won't do it to the same standard. And therefore, that's why they agreed to double their wage. That's what he wants to say. Alright, let's carry on. says here actually they never had this clean bread. The Al-Sheikh writes, Malki Tzedek, of course that was shame, yeah? He brought out for Avraham bread and wine. He was a Cohen, Al-Kain. He says, didn't give him bread. He was bringing Karbonos. He didn't want to look at, why? Because he's bringing Karbonos. He didn't want to look as if he's giving him from Karbonos, which he shouldn't be giving him. That's why he didn't take out meat. And that's why the same idea, these people never had pasnakim, they never had clean bread. And just like the Keteris people never had their wives all smelling of besamim. People shouldn't think they're benefiting from hekdesh. Right? But bread and wine, there's no chashad. There was no wine libations in those days for Avodah Zarah. There was no menachas or lechem apanim. Okay, let's carry on. What are we up to? Beis Abtina, Samasa Keteris. So Beis Abtina, so Bekid Fitzmar Keteris. So they knew how to do the Keteris. So Ma'aleo Ha'asham. And the various type of herb which caused the smoke to rise. But they didn't want to teach others, they didn't know how to do it. They brought people from Egypt. They didn't know how to cause these herbs and some of the smoke. He went up straight. And when it reached there, Paise would scatter and come down. Whereas the smoke from these people, the ones from Alexandria, it would scatter straight away. They found out, it's for his honor. They asked Beis Abtinas, come back. They didn't want to come back until they doubled their wage. They first took 12, now it's 24. It was originally 24, now it made it 48. Why do you not want to teach others? And they said, we have a tradition, the temple will be destroyed, and we don't want other people who are not worthy to learn how to make the keteros. We also give them they'll do it for their idols. In these things, their praise for good. None of their women from their household ever went out wearing perfumes, because people will say, oh, they got it from the keteros. Not only that, if someone married a wife from elsewhere, the condition was made at the time of the marriage, not to wear perfume. They shouldn't say Masechet Shekalim Daf, same as Masechet. The Chaim should never to fulfill what it says. The Eastern Hakim Hashem Yisrael should be pure and a way out of suspicion from Hashem and from the Jewish people. So I found a child from this family. I said, where are you from? From the house of Beis Abtina. I said, Bini, your father's division is coming to the rabbis Kavaidah. They wanted to keep their secrets. Well, my Kavod Shemayim and not give out the honor of heaven. They didn't want to start going back to their work if we don't raise their wage. Now look at the destruction. Now look where they are. We don't need to know anymore. Hashem's covenant is great. He told me, I was cutting grass, picking grass. And he was a Beis Abtina's child there. He was crying and I saw him laughing. So why did he cry? The covenant of my father's house which was reduced. And why did you laugh? For the honor and the glory which will be there. In the future. But Mara Isa, what made you have these emotions? He said to me, because I saw that particular grass. I saw that particular grass we used to use in the Keteros. I said to him, Bini Hareli, show it to me. I'll be very careful. He won't go to Avodah Zarah. He says, Rebbe, we have a tradition not to show it to anyone. An elder came to me from Beis Abtinas, and he had like the list of the spices, the names of the various Keteros spices. The elder said, Rebbe, and in the past we used to hold things secret. We just gave it one to another. We don't need to have it fall in the wrong hands. I'm worried where it will go. No one's trustworthy. And therefore I'm giving it to you. Here, the Megillah, his eye, be careful, you shouldn't fall in the wrong hands. When I said this to Rabbi Akiva, but twice he started crying. But he said, we don't have to mention them for bad anymore. Now they've given over the secret to others with a kavanah l'shem shamayim. Okay, right. All right. Okay. Rabbi Lazar ala paroiches, he was in charge of those who wove the paroiches in the Beis Mikdash. He gave the clothes for the Kohen Gadol. Master became he dressed up. He gave clothes to an officer. And the officer gave him 8 gold pieces. This time he also 12 pieces of gold he gave him. Now, the Kohen Gadol is dressing up this non-Jewish officer. It's Meila Behektish. How can he get the Kohen Gadol to dress him up? He says, it doesn't mean the Kohen Gadol dressed him up. He
just a regular Cohen or something.
Well, I don't know. He says he dressed. Hilbisha is the mother of Shalakatzin. The officer did it himself, but he did it by omnus, and it seems he did it in a nice way, and he was paid for it. Maybe there's a wisdom into how to put clothes on, and this Kohen Gadol has special wisdom how to put these clothes on. Okay. Halacha base. Ein postin mishiva ma'kailin mishloisha gizbarin. We do not have less than 3 ma'kailin. Ma'kailin are the sort of managers and things. Ma'kal means says everything, literally. Yeah? Managers, Gizbarin, in charge of the money of Hagdash. They would get the Nadarim, Harav, people gave various vows. They were in charge on the Gizbarim, in charge of the Gizbarim people. Okay? The Bavli opens Ma'kal into Amar Kula. He says everything. There's nothing you can answer against him. Okay? You need 3 because they're involved in erechin and evaluations. You need at least a basin to decide a value. You can't start making a thing with money on the community with less than 2. So you go around with 2. Except for Ben Achi, he was in charge on healing the stomachs of the Kohanim. And they were accepted, and they were accepted in their work and so on. They do ask, he's helping the stomachs of the Kohen Gadol. Why don't we say, look, you're doing a mitzvah, you're eating meat of the korban, you should be saved from any bad things happening. So the answer is probably that they didn't all have the right intentions, right? They weren't all doing it l'shem shamayim, and they were the ones who had various sicknesses. Now, you don't have less than Shnei Katlikin. They were in charge of the Markulin, so they were a higher stage. Shnei Katlikin. With their financial people, whatever. They were like a higher level. That's what is written. With Trumas and Maestros from the people, and divided to the kind of Levim. V'Yechiel, V'Azaziyahu, V'Nachat, Gizbarin. They were treasurers. Asoel, Rimot, and Yazabad, Eliel, and Maichu, Machaz, Benayahu, Markolin. They are the 7 managers. V'Kidim, Miyad, Benanyahu, B'Shimi, Achiv, Katilikin. They were the high level. B'Mifgad, under the due diligence of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, King Chizkiyahu, V'Azaryahu, Negid Beis Elokim. So this was the Melech and the Kohen Gadol. So you got the various stages there. Now, Keshehu Chaysem. Someone wants to sign off on the money in the Lishka. First of all, Hagizbar Chaysem. Now this is about the various signing of various accounts and things. So first of all, Hagizbar Chaysem Nosan HaMakal. He signs it, gives it to the Makal to sign. HaMakal Chaysem Nosan HaKal to look at it, goes to the one higher. Hagligam Chaysem Nosan HaKohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol Chaysem Nosan HaMelech. Keshehu Mateh. When you want to undo the seal, first of all, the king sees his seal. That is complete. Everything was sealed away and not open. Right? This money container is sealed. Or Mati undoes his seal. And Kohen Gadol undoes his seal. Kadlik in the next stage, Mati, Malkal Mati, Gizba Mati. Let's see one more pass. You're going to have at least two. But Nachman Shem Ramada Al Shem, it says because they take the gold and the blue wool, but it's Hagaman, but it's Hagaman. So the Yitzchok is in plural. You're going to have two people. So any position on the tzibur with money, you have to have at least two. Now, Moshe didn't get any benefit from all these donations. From the leftovers of the second luchais, Moshe was rich. That's what it says. Like carve for yourself, that sort of the waste part elements will be yours. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that Moshe Rabbeinu opened up a little shop selling, here, come and get your broken luchos here, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that. The Ben Ish Chai learns about sparks of holiness. They also ask, because the Gemara in Adarim says, Hashem doesn't rest his Shechina only on someone who's Gibor and Asher, and is learned from Moshe. The Gemara actually says Moshe was rich. So how could the Shechina rest on Moshe before he had the luchos, before he was rich? How could the Shechina rest on him? Because Hashem rests the Shechina on someone who's rich. Some say Moshe Rabbeinu anyway had Ashiros beforehand, but he gave everything to the Mishkan, and therefore he was given another wealth from the luchos. Shammai, they also say, it says the Shechina is resting on someone rich, but the Shechina rested on Moshe beforehand. Then he found someone was with the Admah of Gur before he was an Admah. Parshas Tisisa, he discussed this question. The Admah learned Chumash with Rashi, and before he asked him, the Admah was learning this Rashi. He added, now Moshe Rabbeinu became very rich. So now he was very rich. Before he was also rich. Then he didn't have these questions. So now he became very rich, but he was always rich beforehand as well. As Naim Latira says, the reason why he needed to be rich is so that his words would be listened to. Because otherwise people don't take him for anything. And before the Jewish people served the golden calf, then richness wasn't important in their eyes. They emptied out Egypt. They took out things from Egypt against their will. They didn't want to borrow the silver and gold. They did it because Hashem commanded. It had no worth, the gold, before the Egel. After they did the Egel, they bowed down to the golden calf. That's the tithe for gold. Then they started looking up to wealth, right? And they don't care about someone who's poor. And now Moshe Rabbeinu had to be rich, so that his words would be heard. And although Moshe ground out the golden calf, and it was like dust, the various gold stayed in the brains. This idea stayed in their hearts, and they were still bowing down to their gold. And then, then if he was poor, they wouldn't have listened to him. And when everyone became rich from the psoiles of the Egel, from the leftovers of the Sitra Achra, of the Tumah, Moshe Rabbeinu therefore had to be rich, and that was from the right side, psoiles of the Luchais. That's what he wants to say here. Okay, so what we got now? Okay, this part will be yours. Hashem created various gold, jewels, etc. And from that, Moshe became rich. This Amar doesn't necessarily argue on the Joshua of the Luchais, but he holds the main wealth of Moshe was from this bit, and not from the Luchais. Okay. Some say it was the Eben Sapir, from which Moshe carved out the Luchais. Right. It says, they followed Moshe, they looked after him as he was walking away. Train Amarai, two opinions. One says it's positive, one says it's negative. The one says it's negative. Chamun Shakin, they saw his thick thighs. Chamun Karin, they saw his fat legs. Chamun Kuvdan, they saw his flesh. Oh, he gets everything from us. He just steals everything from us. Shas Midudai, drinks everything from us. Kol Midlei Mindudai, all that he had, he stole from the Jews. Mandam al-Shvach, the one who says, good, Machmei Tzadikayim Mezake, Halavai, we should see the Tzadikim, it's Bitzchus to see the Tzadikim. Tuvaya, the Zachas, the Machmei Yaseh. Happy are those who merit to see him. Halach Gimel. There were 4 seals in the Beis HaMikdash because of Aled. It was written on them. Now these were how you gave out the libations. You had the Nesachim for people who needed it. They would pay various money, and there were various seals. And it was written for Egel, or for Azacha was a ram, Gedi, a goat, a Chote, and a Metzora. So the various levels of libations for various karbanos. You paid the money and you went through a process and you got the libations that you needed. Right? But there were 5. Aram is close to a land. It's written in Aramaic, Egel, the Cha, which is the ram, Gedi, the goat, Chote, Dal, Metzora, who's poor, and Chote, Asher, Metzora, who's rich. Egel, Meshamashim Niske Baka. That means that was used, that seal, for libations for cattle. It's male, female, big or small. Gedi, outside, is all sheep. Big or small, female or male. Except rams. Ayel, that was only used for rams. The 3 animals of a Metzora. Yeah. By the way, a sheep after 13 months is called a ram. And the 13th month is called a pileges. It's not kosher for korban, not as a keves and not as an ayil. Okay. Mishum avakish nesachib. If you need some wine, go to Yechon and Shumunar. He's all got the seals. No zalomos, you give your money in. And you get a seal for the money. And this chaysim bale tzalachi. You use your seal. You come to Achia. Shumunar nesachim. He's got the wine. But no slachas, you give your seal, and he instead, you get your wine. Le'erev, in the evening, Yochanan and Achia meet up. How much money have you got? How many seals have you got? And see, they make sense. He brings out the seals, and Mekama connects them wise. He gets the money for that. If there's less money than what's needed, then Yochanan loses out. He'll have to pay up. If there's extra money, Hektish get the extra. Only they have the upper hand. Someone who lost his seal, we wait till the evening to see where things are. Now if we find there is extra money for his seal, we'll give him the wine that he needs. And if not, we wouldn't give him. Now it also had a name of the day on the seal, so it couldn't be used any other day. Now Ben Azai, now, why do you need a Metzora, poor Metzora? Why does he need a seal? He says, according to Ben Azari, maybe look at him. He would bring the extra lug of shemen, which he put on the ear and on the thumbs with his korban. He would buy the oil from Yochanan. So he needed a seal to include that oil. But Ram Rabbanan, maybe Gedi, they would bring a goat one for Achia, who gives him a lug of oil. And the extra lug he brings from his own house. Niske Rachel v'kama. What about a ewe? How much is a nesachim for that? An older sheep, a female sheep. V'mada tanina v'lon gedi v'shamish niske tzayim. Now a gedi is all sheep, right? Sheep and goats. Gedolim v'ketanim, Chaim v'kos, male, female, old, small. The armor this tells me niske Rachel is niske gedi. It's like a goat. See if it says kacha. So shall be done for 1 ox, and 1 ram, the sheep or the goats. Right? There's no difference in libations between a young calf and an older ox in the second year. You might have thought differently. You might have thought Ben outside Nesachim, or sheep need Nesachim, Ben Abaka, cattle need Nesachim. Now there's a difference between a sheep and a ram, so you might think therefore maybe there's a difference between a calf and an ox. So Hamulavi says no. All ox is the same. There's no difference between a calf and an ox. And then why did it say about the ram? You might have thought now there is a difference between 1-year-old and 2-year-old with a ram. Therefore, you might have thought, maybe make a difference between 2 and 3. So, no. All dinim of rams are the same, even in the 3rd year. Why does it say? But then you might have thought, if there's a difference between a sheep and a ram, maybe a young goat young sheep, and an older sheep, there's a difference. That's why Talmud Lamed says, Oila Seba Kavasim. They're all female sheep, is all the same. Oba Izim Lamani, why I mentioned the goats? Shaivedin, you might have thought, the difference between young sheep and older rams, therefore you might have thought, maybe the difference between a young goat and an older goat. Talmud Lamed says, Oba Izim, Higish Katan Shabizim, the youngest goat is like the oldest goat. Mazeh Shlosh Lugin, Avzeh is also Shlosh Lugin in 3 lug. But say Hayom, Shem Hayom Kasav. Now the document had the name of the date because of cheats. Agaz Bachar, he says, Hayom. Well, you can still cheat. I mean, you can use it the next week, the same day. He says, no, Shem Mishmai Kasav. It had which rota of Kohen were doing work that day. Agaz Bachar, now that work, they would do work twice a year, so maybe you'll come back. The same day of the week in half a year's time. Shem Hayom, it said the day of the week, Shem Shabbos, etc., the day of the month, it would be very difficult to start using it again after the date, after the original date. Okay? There were 2 rooms in the Beis Mikdash. Achas was called Nikras Chashayim, the sort of the quiet room. So people, God-fearing people, would put money in there for tzedakah privately, and poor people would get money, get food from it, quietly. It's not a clear, anyone would give a keli for better, you just throw it in. Every 30 days the treasury is opening up. That's what they needed. So they would use it as it is. The rest of the kelim, the Kohen would be sold. And the money was used for other offerings. Lishkas Chashayin, Rav Yaakov went up and have a palace. They would give to Rav Chama, the father of Rav Hoshea, dinar. Now he would give the dinner to others who were embarrassed to receive the money from the treasurers. Rav Zechariah Hasnei Rav Levi, they were all speaking about him. And they said he doesn't need and he takes. After he died, he used to give to others. He was giving out tzedakah at night. The king of spirits, the king of demons, met him and wanted to damage him. He says, like an orphan Rebbe, did Rebbe, the Rav Chidna, not teach us? Don't go overboard, don't go past your border. Night is the time of the demons, and you shouldn't go out on your own at night. He says, doesn't say but giving privately will nullify the anger. And it was for the sake of Matar B'Seisa, I wanted to give it quietly. And the spirit was afraid and ran away. Doesn't say happy is the one who gives to the poor. Ella, one who thinks about it more. He looks at the mitzvah and how to give it. How did Rav Yonah used to do? He saw someone go down in his estate. Would say, I hear you're due for money from elsewhere. So you now take and you'll pay back. After the poor man took the money, he would say, it's a gift. There were elders in our time. If anyone would give them tzedakah between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they would receive it. After Yom Kippur, they would not receive it. They said to Shatan Gaban, they would say, we're in the new year where we are. In other words, what was decreed on us for this year is already decreed. So it seems they wouldn't take it. He says, we'd rather take what's decreed on us not through tzedakah. The Bavli says, all a person's food is fixed from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. According to this Girsa, Rosh Hashanah is decreed how much money you'll receive till the following Rosh Hashanah. According to the Girsa in Defuse Vilna, the Gzera is decreed in the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So how Yerushalmi fits in based on the second Girsa. They got tzedakah from Aseres Mei Teshuvah because it's not yet, the Gzera is not complete for that year. and their amount, their entitlement might grow. Whereas after Yom Kippur, they would not receive tzedakah because the decree is already fixed for the year. Okay. Nehemiah, is that where we are? Yeah. Nehemiah ish shichin paga b'Yerushalmi echad. He met one Yerushalmi. Zechayim echad etanagalek. Please give me a chicken for my meal. Amalei says, halach timise kupad. Here's a coin to go and buy a piece of meat. But don't start buying chicken. Just buy a piece of meat. It seems the meat was cheaper than the chicken. Zavan kupad, he bought a piece of meat, but Achal he ate and he died. Wasn't used to eating it. And Nehemiah said, "By the siftu, go and let's give a eulogy for the one who Nehemiah has killed." So I don't know. He gave chicken. He wanted chicken, and he said, "Here's a coin to buy meat." Yeah. Don't buy chicken. It seems meat must have been cheaper somehow. And Nachamish Gamzu, who we know the Sfarim bring down, he had a spirit nitzos of light bar. Gamzu l'taiva, light bar. A bit of light was in him. Nachamish Gamzu, Melech Doron lebeis Chaim. He took a gift to his father-in-law. Paga by Mukesh Chin Echad, someone with a utzaras who was weak, met him. Amalei says, give me some tzedakah, what you have. Amalei said, Master, when I come back. When he came back, the guy was dead. And this is what he said towards the mace. The eyes that saw you and didn't give you straight away should be blind. The hands that didn't provide with you should be cut off. The legs that didn't run to help you should break. And all these things happened to him. So Rabbi Kiva went to visit him. Rabbi Kiva says, so it's sad that I see you like this. He says, it's better. Right, Isaac came. If I wouldn't see you like this. Rabbi Kiva says, you're cursing me? Are you like pushing away at troubles? Their forgiveness for sins. So he was happy with his Yisurin. So they bring down, the Darkei Chaim V'Shalom brings down, the Minchas Elazar, any Nedarim he made on Yom Tov for giving money, he would pay it on Motzi Yom Tov, although it was beginning of night. And he wasn't worried about this Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi about not giving tzedakah at night. But it's just paying a neder is not included of giving tzedakah at night. But they asked from our sugya. Here this King of Spirits said, "Letasik v'ul racha." When did he make a neder? He made a neder the other day. He's only paying it at night. All right. Some say the issa to give tzedakah at night is a poor person who's putting out his hand. You might, yadcha. Maybe that's the problem. The whole issa to give tzedakah at night was not said with a poor person putting out his hand. Yeah, that can't be a problem. Yeah, okay. The Chassam Sofer gave tzedakah before every davening, even before Mariv. And again, the Mukubalim say based on the Yerushalmi not to give tzedakah at night. But then he says the Tzela Chachma, the idea of not giving tzedakah is only when you're giving to the poor person, you're taking it to the poor person at night. When you give it to the treasurer to give in the day, that's not a problem. Okay. What about Pidyon Haben? Should be a person particularly not to do Pidyon Haben at day or night. Some give a reason not to do it at night. The Sfardim tend to do it at night, depending on the date. It says here not to give tzedakah at night. Letasik v'ul racha. Tzedakah says from Maves. Pidyon Haben is matzil from Misa. So maybe Pidyon Haben shouldn't be done at night. There's Marsham about Pidyon Haben at night. There's also a B'Yomer. Everybody's got tshuva about it. Okay. Also, the Chipos, they say every night of Sfira they give tzedakah at night. Masechet Tzedakah, the Sefer Masechet Tzedakah. Okay, from Arizal. All right. Let's carry on. How are we doing? Right. Where we? Rav Hoshea Rabba, yeah? Rav Hoshea Rabba, Rabbi Divrei Chad Sagi Noira. He was a teacher of his son who was blind. Rabbi Yalif Yochili Meikol Yom. And Rav Hoshea Rabba would eat with the teacher. Right, so Rav Hoshea's Talmud, his son's teacher. No, the son was blind, and this was the teacher. Rabbi Yalif Achil Imei B'chol Yom. And Rav Hoshea would sit with the teacher every day to give him honor. Hadzman, there was a time, Rav Hoshea had guests and he couldn't come and eat with the teacher. That evening he went to the house of the teacher. Amalei, Rav Hoshea said, don't get cross with me. Begin I had guests this day. I said to myself, since these guests didn't know me, or didn't know you, we're worried that we don't want to put down your honor of my master today. So that's why I didn't eat with you today. The teacher said, you have appeased the one who sees and can't see. Therefore, it seems maybe the teacher couldn't see. Yeah, maybe the teacher was the one who was blind. Therefore, I pray for you. The one who sees and can't be seen, that's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. He also will accept your prayers. She said, where did you get wisdom to say this? He says, from a story which happened with Rezben Yaakov. Someone who was blind, who was a poor person, went to the city of Rezben Yaakov. He took this, when he's coming into the tzibur, Yaseb le Rabbi Rezben Yaakov le Ramine. Rezben Yaakov sat lower than him. The aim when people should say, if the man wasn't great, Rezben would never have sat lower than him. So they thought it must be a great person who'd come in. And therefore, therefore they helped him out with a nice livelihood. And the blind person realized they gave him much more than what people normally give him. He says, what's all this? He lives lower than you. He's sitting lower than you. You must be great. So he prayed on him in his tefillah. You did kindness to the one who sees and can't be seen. Then the one who can see and can't be seen, Chesed will do kindness for you. Dama, we have a story. They were going amongst the shuls in Lud. How much money they put in? To build these beautiful shuls, but they could have used the money for other things. How many people put their lives into this money, that they spent all this money? Was there no one learning Torah that could have used that money? He gave money for making nice gates. The Sidra Rabbi, the base man, Rabbana came to him. Look what you've done, what I've done. He says, on you, it says, they've forgotten their master. You've forgotten what's more important. What I say is that no one who can learn Torah could have used that money more importantly. Wow. So even after all this, but still they weren't happy. Rav Hoshea never said when they were not children, v'ne'aniyim, much more common than people learning Torah. So as far as the mitzvah of Beis HaKnesses is better, but the mitzvah of supporting Lomdei Torah, that would have been on a higher level. Some say, well, they're not sick people. He wants to know it's good to give tzedakah to children and learning Torah, or to sick people than giving to a shul. The Yitzchok is not so happy with that. Children's learning is also very great. The Chikrei Leiv was asked if it's better to give tzedakah for a shul or for the sick, and he learns from the Yerushalmi here it's better to give the sick. And the Chikrei Leiv asks, actually no, someone wanted to say that the Chikrei Leiv brings the tshuva, and the Chikrei Leiv asks, you can only learn here that Lomdei Torah adifa, that people learning Torah is better. How do you know that the sick are better? It seems that Yerushalmi about how many souls put their efforts here. Maybe there were sick people and they didn't give them money for them to get better, and that's why they died. And that's what I want to say. Okay, but where's different? This is there. Okay, we find this Gemara at the end of Peah as well. It seems supporting Torah is better than making a shul beautiful. Right? So it seems maybe even the sick are better. Vayiben is an expression of building, not necessarily making beautiful things. Alright. Let's carry on. How are we doing? Where are we?
Tony covers on the
Rav Avon did that. Tony we've learnt. Kacham is Beach. And we've learnt in the Brisa. Now the various rooms, the Kalim rooms. We take out the Kalim. We take out the animals that are fitting with Mizbeach. We kacham Bedek HaBayis. There's not enough shkalim for Kabbalah Sibur. You can make up the gap with the Bedek HaBayis fund. Ein kacham Bedek HaBayis Masinas Arayla and we kacham Mizbeach. If you don't have enough money in Bedek HaBayis, we can't make up the gap from money which is collected for Kabbalas. You can't do that. But you've got a vessel which they needed for Bedek HaBayis, you leave it to use it, and anything that's not for Bedek HaBayis, the Cohen is sold as Me'er Nofer in the Bedek HaBayis. The money goes for Bedek HaBayis. It doesn't say the money goes to Bedek HaBayis and Mizbeach. So the reason is you shouldn't use Bedek HaBayis for Mizbeach. It seems you shouldn't use it. Aruch is Gekinim Asni. So this way to learn the Mishnah. When it says the money goes to Bedek HaBayis, it means the money goes back Lishkas Bedek HaBayis. So the Kalim we're talking about, which is the room of Bedek HaBayis, and the things of Bedek HaBayis. We're not talking about other things. Let's say they needed money for Kabbalas. So if you don't have you don't have money for Kabbalah Sibur, you can make it up from the money of Bedek HaBayis, and even the money from Kalim that was sold. But usually they use the money of selling Kalim for Bedek HaBayis. Usually they didn't keep it for Bedek HaBayis.
So we're up to Yom Kippur now.
To be continued.